Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping right into something completely fascinating, the cellular science of upgrading your immune system's intelligence. We're going to unpack the actual biology behind 4-life transfer factor trifactor formula and look at the exact mechanisms and clinical studies showing how we can basically educate and activate our body's natural defense network. So think about this for a second. What if you could upgrade your immune system's intelligence in literally just 120 minutes? I know, right? We usually think of supporting our immune system as this vague, long-term daily habit. But the clinical data we're looking at today presents a highly specific and honestly pretty bold timeline. It claims that we can clinically activate and educate our body's defense network in under 2 hours. Let's look at the actual microscopic building blocks that pull this off. To really get how this works, we have to pin down what transfer factors actually are. And the distinction here is absolutely crucial. They're not vitamins, they're not minerals, and they definitely aren't herbs. They are highly specialized messenger molecules designed to transfer immune memory and knowledge directly from one cell to another. Basically, they're created by the immune system for the immune system. But to wrap our heads around how they operate, we really need to understand their scale. Let's walk through a little mind-bending analogy to put this into perspective. Okay, start with a typical 60-kilogram human. Now go 60 times smaller, and you've got a 1-kilogram melon. Go 1,000 times smaller than that, you're at a 1-gram paperclip. Another 1,000 times smaller brings us to a single 1-milligram snowflake. Now, to get down to the size of a transfer factor, which sits right between 3.5 to 12 kilodaltons in size, you literally have to add about 10 more zeros. You're going down to something that is 600 quadrillion times smaller than you or me. Because they are so incredibly tiny, a single capsule can hold trillions of these molecules, just ready to go to work in your body. So what do trillions of these tiny molecules actually look like? Well, think of them kind of like a flower. Transfer factors are made up of 2 distinct regions. First, there's the stem, or what's called the conserved region. Just like most flowers have a pretty similar looking green stem, this part of the molecule's structure stays basically constant from one transfer factor to the next. But then you have the petals. This is the highly variable region. Depending on the specific threat it's facing, say the unique spike proteins on a virus, this region actually changes shape to become a perfect lock-and-key fit. It's this specific part that carries targeted immune information directly to your cells. So how exactly does this biological shape translate into real, actionable immune defense? It really comes down to a simple framework, the 3 R's: recognize, respond, and remember. When you ingest transfer factors, they travel down into your intestines, where they bump into groups of immune cells called Peyer's patches. Now, these patches are essentially biological waiting rooms packed with totally uneducated immune cells. The transfer factors enter these cells and hand over some vital education. First, they teach the cells how to recognize threats much faster. Second, they help the immune system respond, either by stimulating the cells to go after an invader or redirecting them away from harmless targets. And third, they help the immune system remember. Now, that memory function, that is absolutely crucial. Think about a classic example like chickenpox. If you catch it as a kid, you usually never get it again, right? And it's not because you aren't exposed to the virus ever again, it's because your immune system developed a long-term memory. It remembers the threat and neutralizes it way before you ever feel a single symptom. Transfer factors essentially give you this exact same kind of deep cellular memory, but without you having to suffer through the multi-day delay of a primary infection just so your body can figure out what the threat actually is. They act as this instant reminder for your immune cell. So where is all this incredible biological education actually coming from? Well, the science here relies on extracting transfer factors from 2 highly evolved sources in nature. First up, we have cow colostrum. Think about it. A mother cow nurses her calf for months, passing down this wide, generalized breadth of immune knowledge over time to cover as many bases as possible. Then, on the other hand, we have the chicken egg yolk. Once a chick hatches, it is totally on its own, so the mother hen packs a hyper-focused depth of immune knowledge straight into the yolk to protect against immediate, severe threats. By combining both of these, you get this really powerful synergy of broad coverage and highly targeted defense. Basically, cows and chickens turn out to be the ultimate immune-boosting tag team. But wait, there is a third component in the mix here called NanoFactor. These are ultra-small, nano-filtered molecules from cow colostrum that are roughly half the size of standard transfer factors. To really grasp what NanoFactor does, imagine the difference between a high school band and a professional symphony orchestra. If you hand them the exact same sheet music, the high school band might be, well, a bit chaotic. But the symphony orchestra, they are perfectly timed, highly efficient, and they play beautifully together. NanoFactor is essentially the conductor. It doesn't just hand out specific threat information, it actively coordinates the timing and efficiency of your overall immune response so all your cells are working together in perfect harmony. Okay, so we've covered the theory. Now let's dive into the hard clinical proof. In a really rigorous, double-blind, crossover clinical study done by NIS Labs, which is a facility completely dedicated to finding the truth in science for natural products, researchers set out to measure exactly what happens inside the body. They took healthy participants and had them sit quietly in isolated clinic rooms just to eliminate any environmental noise. And what makes this specific study design so incredibly powerful is that each participant actually served as their own control. On one occasion, they were given a placebo, and on another, they got a 600 milligram dose of the active UltraFactor product. The researchers then drew blood at 1 hour, 2 hours, and 24 hours to monitor the cellular activity. And let me tell you, the results were absolutely astounding. Because the transfer factors are so rapidly absorbed straight into the gut mucosal tissue, those Peyer's patches we talked about earlier, the reaction is almost immediate. The immune cells sitting there, ready and waiting, get the call to action, and communication signals literally cascade throughout the body. The blood analysis showed significant increases in specific communication molecules called cytokines, specifically IFN-γ and IL-13. Plus, the researchers saw a massive surge in the CD25 marker on natural killer T cells. This essentially proves an incredibly rapid increase in the immune system's alertness and overall surveillance. When you look at the raw data from those blood draws, the spikes are undeniable. Compared to the placebo baseline, the rapid immune activation markers just shoot right up at the 1 hour and 2 hour marks. For instance, the CD25 marker increased significantly after literally just 1 hour, and the IFN-γ and IL-13 cytokines showed major changes right at the 2 hour mark. This data officially validates the claim we started with, that this formulation is clinically proven to act on the immune system within exactly 2 hours. It's pretty amazing. So you might be wondering, what does the broader medical community actually think about all this? Well, just look at the Physician's Desk Reference, or the PDR. This is the premier, prestigious resource that doctors keep right in their offices across the U.S. to look up prescribing information and new drugs. There's a specific section dedicated entirely to dietary supplements, and 4Life Transfer Factor is the very first entry in that section. It totally cements the credibility of the science we've been discussing. It summarizes the research and provides the citations so medical professionals can verify the clinical efficacy for themselves. And because this extraction process is so highly technical, it's strictly protected. Extracting transfer factors from cow colostrum and chicken egg yolk and specifically combining them to get this incredible synergistic effect is actually protected by multiple actual U.S. and international patents, including U.S. patents 6468534 and 6866868. This really just proves that we are dealing with highly proprietary, peer-reviewed science here. This isn't something that can just be replicated by standard manufacturing processes. It's totally unique. So all of this incredible science we've gone through, the massive reduction in molecular scale, the powerful combination of colostrum and egg yolk, the NanoFactor conductor, and of course that 2-hour activation proof, it all comes perfectly together in the 4Life Transfer Factor TriFactor capsules. Just 2 capsules deliver the exact 600 milligram dose that was utilized in that NIS Labs clinical study we talked about, designed to trigger that cytokine cascade and decisively raise your immune IQ. Which brings us right to our final thought. We've explored the amazing biological mechanisms of how immune memory is transferred, and we've looked at the hard clinical data proving activation in just 120 minutes. The biggest takeaway here is that your immune system doesn't just need to be stimulated, it needs to be educated. So knowing what we now know about the absolute speed and specificity of transfer factors, how will you raise your immune IQ today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.